Just behind me is the area of the Cantatalita, which is now, they think, is where a new pyramid has been discovered, obviously covered up with huge amounts of mud and debris over hundreds, if not thousands of years. I mean, we've been able to visit this site over the last few years, and they've actually dug up a lot more stones here than what are on display. It's obviously just to the one side of the main pyramid, and you can see that it could be a raised structure if you accept that much of this area around it has been full of debris. So there's some intricate stonework there. There's evidence of very high technology. It's almost like a mini Puma Punku, just next to, just further away from the Akapana pyramid here at Tiwanaku. So you can see I'm just behind the fence on the eastern edge of Tiwanaku, and you can see the main pyramid there. You can see the newly excavated area just here, and this hill here, I believe, is part of a pyramid. But down, when I was over there, I looked down into this field and I saw these stones just over here. So let's go and have a look, because these are really interesting. I mean, so we just come down from like the other side of the fence now of Tiwanaku, down the eastern side, the eastern slope. There's the new excavation there. We've got the Kalasasaya and obviously the Akapana mainly in the back, and this is really important. This is unbelievable. Wow, this is amazing. So you can clearly see this here. This is the body of one of the classic kind of statue monoliths, some we see in the Kalasasaya temple, in the sunken temple, also in the museum. But here is one lying on the ground outside the eastern part of Tiwanaku. It's probably about 6 foot long. I'm going to measure this in a moment. I guarantee if we pull it over, the underside of it will be in perfect condition. I bet you there's amazing carvings on it. And it could actually have stuff that's never been seen before. And this whole area here, in fact, that I've been looking around, we've seen stones. This is part of Tiwanaku, clearly. Absolutely astonishing that this is here. So let's measure it. Let's get some idea of how big this would be, because this is obviously a new discovery. Never known this to be reported in any books so far. It's difficult to measure the base, but we'll give some idea here. This is about 30 inches tall. And then we add it to this. So we measured it from the center here, it's 30 inches. If we try and measure this carefully from the center again, it's 53 inches to the chin, and all the way to the top is 78, just under 78 inches. So 78 plus 30, it's 108 inches. That's interesting. That's an estimate, because obviously there's weathering. This could go deeper into the ground. We're really not sure. But what I am sure about is that outside of Tiwanaku here, on the eastern side, this statue, if you look at the orientation of this, I thought maybe it was going to the Kalasasaya, but actually it looks like it's oriented directly to the center of the Akapana pyramid. And it looks like a rectangular enclosure here, probably 60 by 30 meters, something like that. So the fact is, there's a new there's a new statue. This needs to be pulled out. This needs to be kind of cleaned up and put in the museum. They can't just leave this here. Incredibly, this has never been excavated. You can sort of see the features. It's heavily eroded, and to erode andesite must take thousands of years. This is one of the hardest rocks. It's heavily crystalline. It's a form of hardened basalt. This all comes from Viracocha or Viracocha, which is the mountain on the Peruvian side of the lake, and it kind of at the base of that mountain we found many lazy stones, but to find an actual carved monolith just outside the main Tiwanaku complex, I would love to just get a shovel and just clear this, push it over and see what's on the back of it, because I'm sure there's very intricate carvings like there are on the other statues. And this clearly is its original position. Okay, so this is one of the rooms in the museum at Tiwanaku, and here we see some statues from Viracocha, which is 10 miles south of Tiwanaku. It's where the Viracocha monolith that was also found there, which is got these Sumerian potentially inscriptions on it, but these are now on display at Tiwanaku. There's other ones on display at the museum in La Paz, and you can see the features here. Similar ones are now outside the church at Tiwanaku, and also we must remember that this room is out of bounds. The public are not allowed to go in this room, so we were very fortunate to get in there and get some photos of these amazing statues that kind of resemble tiki statues from all over the South Pacific, as well as the kneeling statue that Thor Heyerdahl found on Easter Island. Now, this is a very famous statue. It's had like quadruple spiral on it with a 3D frog and lightning built into it. And here's another piece of, I believe, the same statue, where it's got like Shikana crosses and so forth. This is a 3D relief carving, very similar to Göbekli Tepe, showing different types of animals like emerging from the rock. We find similar things at Silastani and Cotimbo around Lake Titicaca, but it's unusual to find them here, and the resemblance to Göbekli Tepe and some of the animal carvings there are remarkable, as you can see in these images. We continued. When I was there, I found another room which was kind of has been locked every other time I've been there, but they were doing building work there, so I slid the doors open and snuck in there and found about 20 or 30 artifacts and statues that I've never seen before. So here are some examples here. I just want to show you these. These are like an exclusive. These have never been shown in public before. I've never seen any of these anywhere in any books, websites, any colleagues of mine who've been researching in Peru and Bolivia, and you can just see that I'm amazed that these are not on display in the main museum. They've got pieces of aqueducts here. We have like the Chicana crosses, much like we find all over Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, obviously all over the later Inca world as well. And this shape was incidentally a pool, like horizontal pool on top of the Acapana pyramid. We have the false doorways that kind of go nowhere. We see similar styles at Ollantay Tambo, where we see these kind of small doorways that go nowhere. This is the back of one of the main artifacts that are in this secret room in the museum. This is yet another doorway, and you can see that this is a very prominent design spec that we find. This is the front of the one I just showed you, and it just shows you the intricate technology of stonework that they were working with here. It's just really quite remarkable that this room is out of bounds. You can't go in there. I was very fortunate. I timed it on a day when they were doing works in the room, but hopefully these will be on display at some point, because I feel they're very important. This is obviously a hold stone. We do find examples in the Tiwanaku site that are used for acoustic properties, but these ones are really intrigue me. These have got like sort of hexagons on them, which almost like come up like kind of tubes into the surface. Now, at first thought, myself and JJ thought they were kind of like part of the headdress of Viracocha that we find on some of the statues. But there's a couple of other examples here which are very baffling. We've seen similar stones like this at Puma Punku. So these are probably from Puma Punku. It's probably a design spec of that site. All along the bottom of this one, you can see little bits of evidence that they were there as well. With the cross obviously carved in the center, and you can see down the left hand side there as well, probably more of these shapes kind of emerging like a 3D almost crystal coming out of the rock. These are obviously parts of the aqueducts that we find find all over Tiwanaku and Puma Punku. And this is like a strange bird's head, like a sort of almost like a robot bird's head on the left there, carved into this block of andesite. And this is the one that really intrigues me. It's because it looks just like lines carved on a slab, but when you look closely you can see that it's got these shapes, these beautiful geometric shapes all over the outer edge. So what's this? Is it the representation of some kind of wings or feathers, or is it something else? Again, more aqueducts here, probably used for water, but it could have been a metal processing plant. And again, doors to nowhere. This is very reminiscent of what we see at Puma Punku. So the things we're finding here at Tiwanaku that are not on display are possibly, to me, these are some of the most important pieces that have been found at Tiwanaku and Puma Punku. So we hope one day they will be on display, because they're very important. This is very abstract. There's different kind of glyphs almost carved on this one, almost like some kind of writing. As you can see, more detail as we zoom in a little bit there. Again, we sort of more abstract forms. This doesn't look very neat and tidy, but again, they're carving out of solid rock, probably andesite. Again, another whole stone here, and half of a Chinkana cross, which we find all over both Tiwanaku and Puma Punku. And in the very back room, I had to use a flash here, is a broken Viracocha statue, much like the one I found east of the main complex. So again, there's more statues, there's more discoveries that are not being presented to the public. We see the keystone cuts. This is obviously, this had poured metal in it. We know that for a fact because there are some of the metal clamps on display in the main museum, which will feature in a later video. And here's just some of the stone blocks used to make up the site. These probably laid on top of the water channels. Again, intricate carvings, relief carvings, very detailed. Again, probably from Puma Punku. And we just have to, you know, it does raise some questions. So please do leave. This is actually an example of another type of keystone cut, and we have like a drill core there, which is interesting for those interested in the lost ancient technology. But please do leave, you know, any comments about what you think any of these are, because they're very intricately carved. They're found all over Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, and they really are a mystery, and we hope you can join us there later this year to explore, hopefully, this part of the museum and the rest of the sites, Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, and obviously the rest of Peru and Bolivia.